Um, the second question, if I understand it correctly, what are the Islamic instruments that would help avoid the crisis or avoid failure or crashes? All Islamic instruments in principle should serve this purpose. Deferred sale, salam, leasing, musharaka, equity, and all these instruments are valid instruments for financing because they integrate real wealth creation with debt creation, if I understand your question correctly. The second question was why the crisis now? Uh, Economists are good at predicting the event, but they are not good at predicting when the event would happen. Economists have been warning for years and years of of something wrong. That there are many things that are wrong in the economy. But why now? Because it reached the level at which the system is not sustainable. We cannot know when the crash would happen, but we know that the inverted pyramid structure is not sustainable. It has to crash. Now, I know that some people say that there is a conspiracy. Believe me, there is no conspiracy. If there is any conspiracy, it's the conspiracy of economic laws against those people who were trying to game the laws of nature that Allah Ta'ala put into this world. So no matter how you game the natural system, you will lose. So no matter how you try to play an imbalanced and unfair game, it will backfire. Anyone who's trying to take money for nothing, he has to pay for it. The Prophet ﷺ said, "In riba wa in kathur, fa inna amrahu ila qil." The Prophet said that riba, no matter how much you get more money of it, it ends up with less. And that's exactly what happened. Riba, no matter how those institutions are accumulating, ultimately they will lose. They will get less than what they started with. And that's exactly what happened. And by the way, Peter Drucker, in 1999, he had an article in the Economist magazine. And in that article, he said that investment banks in the West, and particularly in the US, they would fail and they would disappear if they continue doing what they are doing. That was in 1999. It is cited in the Hitchin paper, and you can go to the Economist archives and get it from there. Anyone who was reading that article that time, was wondering how can those big banks would disappear. This was too difficult to imagine. But that was the reality. Peter Drucker predicted that those investment banks will not continue as they are. Either they would change themselves or they simply will disappear. And this is exactly what happened. The investment banking segment industry in the US disappeared. Either they shifted to become commercial banks or they simply defaulted and bankrupt. And that's what happened.
Thank you, Dr. Sami. May I now request brothers and sisters from Markfield Institute to come up with their questions and comments, please.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I have two questions here. The first one, when you mentioned about we should have a parallel lending system as a backup to current free lending, and I'd like to ask, how about the role of IDB, Islamic Development Bank, and initiate these notions with other Islamic banks to set up such institutions, beside to offer Islamic mortgage based on takaful system. And the second question is about when you mentioned earlier the Western economies realize Islamic economic system and Islamic finance as alternative. Do you think we should promote the essence of Islamic financial system itself, or just change it as its alternative, to the economic system?
Can you say it again? The last.
No, the last one is about because the Western start realize Islamic financial system as alternative to the capitalism or Nizam Somalia, which is failure. um, even Vatican recently propagate to the world to look at Islamic financing system as alternative. But because Islamic phobia in the Western world, we should rename it as a alternate banking system, or we still remain as Islamic financial system itself.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is, by observing how actually mortgage and securitization transaction have been dealt in conventional finance in terms of mortgage-backed security or CDS, collateralized debt security, is it possible to issue ijara sukuk on Islamic mortgage asset in terms of mortgage-backed sukuk that can replicate MBS and CDS securities?
Thank you, brother. Sami.
Thank you very much for your question. IDB is certainly active in financing development, and as a development institution, it is not a for-profit institution, it is a developmental institution. It takes markup in, for example, murabaha and istisna, but this is not a commercial profit. They are not making commercial profit. They are making the minimum profit that would keep the institution growing and expanding. Plus, there is they called concessionary lending, non-profit loans that are for more or less free, without markup. So IDB is only one. We need several development, and every country, by the way, every country they have these developmental financing institutions, but these have to be strengthened and empowered, and obviously make it able to adopt Islamic instruments, if I understand your question correctly. The other point is that, shall we rename Islamic finance? Maybe that would be suitable 10 or 15 years ago. But now everybody talks about Islamic finance, so there is no point in changing it. Everybody knows it, and for one reason or another, everybody wants to get Islamic finance. In UK, in Italy, in Spain, in France, and everyone all over the world now, Singapore, Hong Kong, all are talking about Islamic finance. So it would be a losing strategy, not a very good strategy, to change the name. They already know it. It's already a brand, so to speak. So with this brand, you better to capitalize on it, not to change it. But the message is that Islamic finance is not only for Muslims, it's for everybody, and the basic principles are universal. It's for all divine religions. So that's what we can tell the world, that this is not only for Muslims and not specific to Quran. No, the Old Testament, the New Testament, as well as the Quran, they all agree on the basic principles. So let's get into these common principles and act accordingly. Can we replicate CDOs, mortgage-based securities, etc.? Well, of course you can securitize leased assets. If you lease a house, then you can sell that house after being leased. In other words, you can securitize it. That is, but with the approval, of course, of both parties. Now, there are few things, or many important things, that will never happen, no matter how we engineer. If we follow the spirit of Islamic finance, that we will not get into. Toxic assets cannot be created in Islamic finance. So no matter how we structure these sukuk or these Islamic securities, no matter how we structure it and play with it, we cannot end up with a toxic asset. This cannot be acceptable from pure Islamic point of view, because the definition of gharar is a transaction whereby loss is more likely than gain. So we cannot create an asset that is more likely to lose. That is Islamically unacceptable. And it's not something, by the way, this is unanimously, this is not something that's peculiar to some schools. And no, this is a concept that everybody agrees on. So we cannot create toxic assets. We can create securities, we can create sukuk, We can securitize, but we cannot create toxic assets. That's one thing. The other thing is that we cannot side bet on these assets. I mean, CDS market, as we already have seen, 80% of the CDS market are naked CDS. They are pure side bets, zero-sum games, and that would amplify the risk and amplify the losses. This cannot be acceptable from an Islamic point of view. These are two important things, and if we go back to the start, which is that the financing from the beginning was related to wealth creating transaction, and if we put again forbearance, by the way, if we put forbearance into action, then lenders will be more careful in extending loans. If you know in advance that the borrower, you cannot charge him more, that you cannot kick him out of his house to get your loan paid back, if you know that you have to wait, if you know this in advance, you will be very careful in extending the loan from the beginning, from the start. You will be very careful. You see, if the system allows you to charge more or kick him out of the house, then you will be less careful in extending credits. And that's what happened. The subprime, by definition, those subprime segment customers, they are more likely to default. It was gharar from the beginning. But why would the bank extend credit to those people? Because he can kick them out and sell the house or simply refinance. So either both, see, all those three are unacceptable. To lend to someone that is more likely to default, that's not acceptable because this is gharar by definition. Two, to kick him out of his house, put him in the street, unanimously unacceptable. Both are unanimously, by the way, unacceptable. Three, to refinance, again unacceptable. So no matter how you look at it, the bubble from the beginning, the bubble is very unlikely to develop, and you will not have these cumulative or mountains of debt and toxic assets. So there is a room for financial engineering, and there is a room for innovation, but it is good innovation. Islamic finance gives us the rules for good and healthy innovation, but not bad innovation.
Thank you, Dr. Sami. I'm afraid we have to close the session now because of some unavoidable time-related constraints. So let me take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sami for a very useful and powerful presentation and lecture. It has been a good learning experience, I'm sure, for all of us. And I also thank all the participants for being here and for participating in the discussions. Inshallah, let us meet next week, same time. So till then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.